Hello and thanks for joining us from our studios in Israel. I'm Aaron Porras, here with ILTV's Morning Briefing.
The world is still reeling from the horrific domestic terror attack yesterday in Las Vegas, the deadliest mass shooting in American history. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu has offered his condolences to the entire American nation, saying that, quote, "the people of Israel stand shoulder to shoulder with the American people in mourning and sorrow," end quote. The Las Vegas police have just upped the death count to 59 and have confirmed that over 500 were injured after gunman Stephen Paddock opened fire on the Vegas Strip. 12 Israeli citizens were unaccounted for during the chaos, though the foreign ministry now says that they've all been safely located. Among the injured, however, is at least one Jewish woman who was shot and is now in the hospital undergoing surgery. Thankfully, her condition does not appear to be life-threatening at this time. The bloody aftermath of the day's tragic events are still ringing even here in Israel, where the Tel Aviv City Hall illuminated in red, white, and blue to show its solidarity with the bereaved American people. An investigation into Stephen Paddock's motives for committing such a horrific massacre has so far yielded little results. Paddock killed himself before police could apprehend him at the scene of the crime, where they discovered a .42 weapon arsenal. The world continues to grieve for the American people's loss. With an historic cabinet meeting currently in progress between Hamas and the Palestinian Authority, a reconciliation between the two rivals has never seemed more real. The United States is now weighing in on the matter, voicing its optimism for such a deal, but cautioning that the terms must include recognition of the Jewish state. President Trump's Middle East envoy Jason Greenblatt has just said that, quote, "the United States stresses that any Palestinian government must unambiguously and explicitly commit to nonviolence, recognition of the State of Israel, acceptance of previous agreements and obligations between the parties, and peaceful negotiations," end quote. One of the biggest sticking points of a possible Palestinian unity government is the matter of what to do with Hamas's army, which most believe the terror group will be reluctant to dissolve. While not explicitly mentioning Hamas by name, Greenblatt did specify that the Quarter Principles would need to be obeyed by all parties involved, a set of international regulations that Hamas has historically refused to abide by. Although Hamas has already offered to officially dissolve its government control over the Gaza Strip, a lot still remains to be seen as these negotiations unfold over the coming weeks. A routine stock check at an Israeli military base in the Golan has just turned into a race against the clock, as a number of mines, anti-tank equipment, explosive charges, hundreds of M16 rifle rounds, and more have just turned out missing. The theft appears to have occurred on Monday at an I.D.F. combat engineers base in the Golan Heights, and the army has already started heavily investigating the incident. Soldiers, commanders, and anyone else with access to the stolen arms are being questioned, with the hopes of finding the weapons before they reach their intended buyer or buyers. The I.D.F. suspects that they are on their way to Israeli crime syndicates who use the weapons for mafia-style attacks. To make matters worse, this isn't the first time that this has happened either. Just this past July, two brothers who were operating as civilian contractors for the Israeli Defense Forces were suspected of breaking into a northern Beersheba base and stealing weapons and ammo to sell to criminal organizations as well. The I.D.F. has now given an official 72-hour notice to the family of the ADAR terrorist that their home will soon be demolished. The terrorist, Nimer Mahmoud Ahmad Jamal, who had a worker's permit to enter Israel, opened fire on security personnel last week, killing 3 Israeli guards and wounding a 4th. Jamal's family now has 3 days to appeal the decision, but if the court doesn't step in, the demolition will go on as planned. Israel has frequently used home demolitions as a deterrent to terror ever since 2014 when the measure was reinstated. Many see the deterrent as an effective means to combat terrorism, while critics see it as collective punishment that is ultimately ineffective anyway. Elsewhere in the West Bank this morning, the I.D.F. also conducted several raids, arresting 8 Palestinian suspects, seizing a makeshift submachine gun, and confiscating, quote, "thousands of shekels meant to fund terror," end quote. In terror-related news, convicted terrorist Ziad Awad, who was released in 2011 as part of the Gilad Shalit exchange, has just been sentenced to 2 life terms in prison for his part in a 2014 drive-by shooting attack. Awad and his son were arrested back in 2014 after murdering Chief Superintendent Baruch Mizrahi and injuring his wife Hadass and one of their children on the eve of Passover in April 2014. Mizrahi, his wife, and 5 kids were all in the vehicle on the way to the West Bank settlement of Kiryat Arba for a Passover Seder. Shortly after Awad was found guilty and sentenced for murder, attempted murder, and possession of a weapon, Hadass Mizrahi said, quote, "The State of Israel allows these animals walking on 2 to continue to celebrate at our expense. Those who carry out these attacks enjoy a wondrous severance package. They receive grant money from the PA, supplies from the Red Cross, and living conditions that many Israeli families in need can only dream of. We need to put an end to the terrorist celebrations. The Israeli government must immediately push for a death sentence for terrorists." End quote. At the very least, Awad will not be leaving prison again anytime soon anyway, as the court took into account his 2011 release and thus recommended he never be part of any future prisoner swap. Awad's son, Az-Adin, was also sentenced to 20 years in prison and fined 250,000 shekels in compensation to the Mizrahi family for aiding in the 2014 attack.
That's all for now. I'm Aaron Porras, and see you later with our main daily broadcast from Israel at 2 p.m. Eastern Time.